I mentioned in an earlier video that between chapter 2 verse 14 and chapter 7 verse 5, Paul goes on a long digression from the account of his concern about the Corinthians' response to his earlier communication with them. Today we come to the end of that digression as we read 2 Corinthians chapter 7 verses 1 to 4. Having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God. Receive us. We have wronged no man, we have corrupted no man, we have defrauded no man. I speak not this to condemn you, for I have said before that ye are in our hearts to die and live with you. Great is my boldness of speech toward you, great is my glorying of you. I am filled with comfort, I am exceeding joyful in all our tribulation. We all have a tendency to digress when we're talking to people. Sometimes we call it going off at a tangent or going down a rabbit hole. And if you're like me, it can take us needlessly away from the point. But that was not the case with the Apostle Paul. In his digression, if we may call it that, Paul sets before the Corinthians three great matters concerning the ministry that he had been entrusted with. He did this in order to impress upon them the importance of their attitude towards him, because their attitude was not just an attitude towards a private individual, an ordinary person. It was an attitude to a person who had been appointed as an ambassador for Christ, an apostle. And his message, if they refused Paul's message, they were refusing Christ's message. The three matters interwoven throughout the previous 4+ chapters are these. The nature of the ministry. In chapters 3 and 4, Paul shows that the ministry that he had been entrusted with had the glory that excelleth. Chapter 3 verse 10. It was the treasure in earthen vessels. Chapter 4 verse 7. Then he speaks of the integrity of the ministry. In chapters 4 and 5, Paul records that we have renounced the hidden things of dishonesty, chapter 4 verse 2, and we are made manifest unto God, chapter 5 verse 11. And then there is the divine enabling of the ministry. In chapters 3 and 6, Paul records that our sufficiency is of God, chapter 3 verse 5, and that he in all things approved ourselves as the ministers of God by the power of God, chapter 6 verses 4 and 6. Now, given this excellent ministry, Paul concludes his digression by urging them to make room for him. Receive us, he says in verse 2. He had been above board in all his activity, unlike many others. We have wronged no man, we have corrupted no man, we have defrauded no man, also in verse 2. He hadn't exploited them or taken advantage of them to line his own pockets. He was not in it with his own agenda, but for their benefit. Ye are in our hearts to die and live with you, verse 3. Everything that he said to them, even when it seemed harsh, was because of his love for them. Paul spoke plainly to the Corinthians. Great is my boldness of speech toward you, verse 4. But he also spoke well of them to others as well. Great is my glorying of you, also in verse 4. It was like a family relationship where we can be very direct with each other inside the family, but loyal to each other outside of it. Now let me conclude by going back to verse 1. Having spoken of the importance of not being unequally yoked with unbelievers, which we talked about last week, and the Lord's promise that I will receive you in chapter 6 verse 17, Paul urged the Corinthians to do two things. First, cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, verse 1. And second, perfect holiness in the fear of God, also in verse 1. The reality of these precious promises should spur us into action to make good separation from all these things that are impure and holy, both external and internal. As Christians, holiness should be our objective. Our daily conduct should be to bring it to completion in our lives.